medical pandemic, but certainly Corona as a paradigm shift as far as the economic and the financial policy is concerned. Although we in our country might be terming it as Atmanirbhar, it needs to be noted, and let me hasten to add that we are not the only country to do so. The biggest economy of the globe, America, is already on record proclaiming that be American, buy American. Japan has already announced that they are ready to open for FDI, but at their own terms. Vietnam, Malaysia are already preparing themselves as far as welcoming the likely shift of projects or the products or services from China to their countries are concerned. India and many other countries are not far behind. So I'm using the word may, and I'm very much aware that may always includes may not. But there is every probability that this may say that this may witness us to a scenario where a major realigning, if not a production basis, at least of the distribution basis and capital inflows or FDI inflows are concerned would be there. If we have to view the scenario under such circumstances, let me go step by step. As far as the be local, be vocal, and be global scenario under Atmanirbhar is concerned, certainly it had certain logical implications. It may be favorable, it may not be favorable. But as we are tracking the events post-COVID, let me start with a closure of 6 date schemes announced by Franklin Templeton. Because in our country, mutual funds along with life insurance has really always played a pivotal role as far as the collection of savings at a domestic level is concerned. And what we have seen, as I have stated earlier, that LIC has already posted on its record that they have got a severe hit as far as opening of new policies are concerned, which has resulted into a lesser number or a lesser amount of premium being collected. It is not only some sort of a shortfall as far as the insurance sector is concerned, but considering the fact that LIC is one of the most important, if not the biggest investor as far as our investment field and particularly the equity investments are concerned, it would certainly undersee and it would certainly witness some sort of a shortfall as far as the investment inputs of our equity market is concerned. And if we have to strengthen our GDP growth rate, which has fallen down drastically in a post-COVID scenario, under such circumstances, the capital investment needs to be strengthened. And if LIC or a mutual fund are receiving a lesser amount to being collected, it would certainly have the adverse impact. We have already seen the indication thereof. If we see the crux of the fund infusion, as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan is concerned, the major driving force is bank loans and bank finances rather than the investment. Under such circumstances, one has to note that very recently, LIC has already announced that as far as financial year 2021 is concerned, they would be investing only rupees 30,000 crores as far as the Indian equity market is concerned. Per se, rupees 30,000 crores is not a small amount. But if we compare that this 30,000 crore getting invested in 2021 vis-a-vis 47,000 crores invested by LIC in 29-20 and 52,378 crores invested by the same LIC 1 year prior to that, one can see the guess and one can gauge what sort of impact we will have. On one hand, it would have some sort of a leeway or a waygate as far as the FDIs in our country is concerned. We have read in recent newspaper reports as well as the TV channels that as far as India is concerned, in last 15 days, they are ranking 2 as far as the receipt of FDI flows are concerned, and we are way ahead as far as our Asian counterparts or the competitors are concerned. On one way, it is heartening. On the other way, it needs to be looked into that as far as FDIs are concerned, it is certainly one has to accept it with a pinch of salt. Because if they can come at a trigger, the history has already shown us the experiences, and we have witnessed it in the past, especially in late 90s and late 2000, first decade of 2000, that if they are merely a trigger away as far as the pulling out thereof is concerned. And when already our Indian capital markets are seeing some sort of a volatility as far as the movement of a Sensex is concerned, the more worrisome factor is that it is not accompanied by a commensurate trading volumes. Under such circumstances, I'm not hinting from my experience at an occurrence or a likely occurrence of a fraud, but certainly some sort of a malpractices. And if it really emerges that way, let God forbid it should not. I'm not hinting that there is something fishy, but I'm just looking at a possibility. And if it really happens, it will be certainly a bad omen as far as already bruised Indian investors' sentiments are concerned. And I always feel, especially after March 20, that COVID is not merely a medical drawback, but it is going to affect us as a community. It is going to affect us as the economy. It is going to affect us as a society more in a psychological and a financial manner. The most important implication of a post-COVID scenario is concerned is that it is not merely a change of a lifestyle as a citizen, but probably it may be a change of lifestyle for an economy as a whole. And especially when we are concerned, as far as today's topics are is concerned, which happens to be an implication of a COVID-19 on financial sector, I would like to have my first major point as a changing pattern and style of my disposable income, first accrued income and subsequently a disposable income. We are now getting used or accustomed to a working style like called as work from home. Earlier, it may be a luxury or an optional item, but virtually across the economy, it may turn out to be a new norm or a new normal as far as the post COVID scenario is concerned. It is not merely a change of workplace, but there is every likelihood that it may turn out to be a change of composition of my salary income as well. I'm not joking. Just take a call. I was associated rather. By habit, I said I am associated, but now I have to reconcile myself to the fact that I'm no more associated with NSDL. Probably equally, we all have to get reconciled to this new working style of work from home. When I used to be associated with NSDL, as all of you are aware, NSDL is one of the biggest and the largest user of a hardware and software and network is concerned, not only within the country, but across Asia and more probably in the globe. We would realize that when max 10% employees are allowed to work from home at this particular unlock stage one, it may go up to 50%. But that clearly indicates that remaining 50%, and that too by rotation, have to work from home at least for many years to come. Under such circumstances, I jocularly used to tell a few weeks ago to my NSDL CFO that probably the nomenclature of my salary slip, which connotes besides basic, HRA, DA, then it says a conveyance allowance. I think instead of a conveyance allowance, now the companies will be paying me the connectivity allowance. Because if I am using work Wi-Fi, local Wi-Fi when I'm working from home as of today, but tomorrow when it becomes a permanent corporate policy, and if the company is employing more than 400, 500 people, it may be more suitable or feasible for a company to have one central vendor and provide a connectivity to all their employees from that vendor. And instead of paying me a conveyance allowance, company will give me that connectivity at a lesser rate. And because they may be in a position to bargain with the conductor or with a connector or the service provider. Under such circumstances, in salary slip, that connectivity allowance may be shown, but I may not be getting it in my hand. It certainly has a direct implication as far as my take-home pay is concerned. Point number one. Point number two, in a post-COVID scenario, we have realized that my certain life essentials I have to buy, whether it is available in a shop or it is available in my society where I'm staying, whether it is the day-to-day daily needs like milk, vegetables, fruits, or any other scenarios. Under such circumstances, probably the cash component or a cash expenditure is on the rise. Because after demonetization, slowly but surely, our economy was moving more and more towards a cashless transactions. But during last 60 to 70 days of a lockdown period, many vendors who were providing me the services at my doorstep have refused to accept anything in a form of a Google Pay or any time of a Paytm Pay or any time of a credit card payment, and they are insisting for a cash kind of a scenario. Probably that has provided me that on one hand, in a post-COVID scenario, my take-home pay would be reduced to some extent. And out of that reduced take home pay, I'll have to garner something or keep away something for such cash expenditure. Under such circumstances, the amount really available for me, not only for my consumption, but also for my investment, may get at a reduced extent to or a lower level, at least for a temporary period. Under such circumstances, there is every likelihood that the investable flows, as far as next 6 to 7 months are concerned, would be really badly affected. And that's why the first point which I made, when LIC stated that number of policies getting opened, not only the new policies opened, but the amount of premium collected from already existing policies have also gone down. It is a national scenario, and that's why willy-nilly, probably government has to rely or emphasize more on a bank credit or a loan portfolio. Under such circumstances, my entire merchant banking scenario will undergo a change. And once again, at least for next few months, banks will have to concentrate more on a loan portfolio rather than a fee-based income portfolio. This I pursue and assume would be a biggest change or implication on financial sector as far as the post-COVID-19 scenario is concerned. It is not academic in nature. It is certainly reality in nature. Let me share something what I'm trying to convey. You will agree with me that if this scenario continues for a long, certain alignments will have to undergo a change. That's why we came out with a concept called moratorium. Central government as well as the Reserve Bank have consistently reduced the repo rates or reverse repo rates for a long. As a first immediate reaction, I'm restraining myself from using the word knee-jerk reaction. It was immediate reaction and it was badly needed. And that's why we as a government or we as an economy decided that whatever loan amounts were due, loan installments were due, or interest on those loans were due, can be deferred under the term moratorium. First, we extended this period for a period of 3 months. Subsequently, on 22nd of May, when our Reserve Bank Governor Shaktikanta Das conducted a press conference at 11 o'clock in the morning, he extended this already extended moratorium period by next 3 months. So almost for a 6 months, now there is a moratorium. Let us note, it is not a loan waiver. So on a balance sheet, bank has to show it that they can't term it as NPA. Point number one. Point number two, concerned industrialist can't write it off because he has to pay it. It's a moratorium. It's not a loan waiver. Point number one. But because of that, the entire cash flow of the bankers are getting under strain. And especially when now they are thrust to have a loan provisions in place, especially after consistent reduction of a repo rate and reverse repo rate and emphasis of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan on the bank loans. To be honest, their entire cash flow has gone for a toss. And it has another implication, although the intention was quite good. When government announced or the Reserve Bank announced a loan moratorium for a period of 6 months now, they were intending to have an additional liquidity at the hands of a consumer, at the same time at the hands of a concerned industrialist. So when they restart their operations in an unlocked situation after COVID-19, government felt that this particular additional liquidity would have some sort of a leeway by which the immediate necessary urgent payments toward labor, towards purchase of raw material, towards the easy and faster movement of their finished product, which are already in their godowns, but we were not able to move because of the lockdowns. This would help this particular liquidity. Certainly, it would have some impact. But in order to assess the positive impact of this, we will have to wait for it. But it has unintended but immediate impact as far as the mutual fund is concerned. As all of us have witnessed, not only because mutual fund inflows or the mutual fund SIPs might have continued, but the floaters which we used to invest in mutual funds have gone down. The immediate trigger, therefore, was the Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund disbanding or banning or closing their 6 debt schemes. I'm not saying it's a fraud, but one of the reasons why Franklin Templeton was forced to close such a debt scheme as stated by Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund itself, they said that because of this moratorium and other earlier changed rules of SEBI, now their debt scheme investments, which were supposed to mature during those 6 months, have got affected. Under such circumstances, where debt schemes or the liquid schemes which are already shorter shelf life, they were under stress, and that's why they were not in a position to sustain those pressures, and they were willy-nilly forced to close down the scheme. Now, this particular fear quotient has not remained restricted only to those 6 debt schemes which a Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund has announced. But in fact, it has got equally affected to all the other debt schemes floated by other debt mutual schemes. Under such circumstances, when a common investor like you and I went to redeem those online, they faced a problem. The mutual fund agents somehow were under pressure not to accept, or they were not able to process this particular request. Under such circumstances, now a common investor like you and I are taking back a stance and having a rule look as far as my mutual fund agencies are concerned. Certainly, this particular BSE Sensex or NSE Sensex, or for that matter, capital market indices getting stabilized at a higher level may soothe nerves to some extent. But to a great extent, at least for a short-term phenomenon, it has some sort of a implication. Point number one. Point number two, if you see the new fields which are getting opened up, they are new not only for you and me as an investor, but probably to a great extent as far as the banking and financial circles are concerned. Because for them, this would be a completely a new paradigm shift. Let me cite or start as far as this point is concerned with certain positive notes. It is not that only after a post-COVID this particular scenario is unfolding, but there are certain circumstances which have started even before. There is a pattern as far as this methodology is concerned. If any one of you are interested in reading my book, which is in Marathi, it is called Modi Arthakaran, Niti and Rananiti. If I have to translate this into English, it may sound something like Modinomics policies and strategies. This book deals with the Modi economic policies or economic policies of Modi government since 2014. And there I have stated that Modinomics has one peculiar phenomenon. I'm talking about by way of a national economics, no political colors, please. But there is some sort of a unique method, and now it is getting accelerated. I'm not using the word aggravated because the verb aggravated has some sort of a negative connotation, and I'm not on a negative connotation from there from. If any one of you have heard me on speaking on the dais of Vasantdada Patil Management Institute of Management Studies and Research, today's organizer, they have conducted my budget session, and I have deliberated on this particular point. So briefly, I will state, and I will go to the post-COVID scenario. There I have stated that Modinomics has one peculiar phenomenon, that they try to raise the resources from unconventional sources, and they try to spend it on a conventional fields of expenditure. This entire Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan is moving towards that. So although it's a positive connotation as far as the post-COVID-19 scenario is concerned, it is a bit new. And each new thing we always try, because it's a human tendency to resist a change. Unless and until I get accustomed to it, so although the banks may have a finance, but even the users thereof would be more interested, would be new to a bank finance scenario, and banks would be new to their scenario. I'm talking about the self-help group and cottage industry and the cluster-based approach of a cottage industry is concerned. The entire focus of a budget presented on 1st of February 2020, and especially the major crux of 13th to 17th May press conferences, is on self-help groups as well as the cottage industry in the nature of a MSME. Just have a look at it. This would be the new India. This would be a new global order as far as the be local, be vocal is concerned. On one hand, it starts from a cottage industry. On the other hand, it goes into the astrospace or a defense expenditure or even a space shuttle kind of a scenario. So right from pin to piano kind of a scenario, now we will be having the business paradigm partners right from a self-help group which may consist only of 20 persons to ISRO space research or a launching of a space shuttles are concerned. On one hand, such a post-COVID scenario gives me a wide spectrum, not only a financial player from a fund provider scenario is concerned, but probably even from an investment opportunity is concerned. Such investment opportunity may not be restricted or confined only within India, but certain FDI kind of a scenario will be also interested therein too. It's not a coincidence that the same Warren Buffett, whom I mentioned earlier as the introductory remark, who said that it will take more than 3 years to assess, but that man has already announced on 5th of May that he will be visiting India in March 2021. And we have the instances in the past that he have visited our country 7 years ago, and there was some sort of a fillip as far as my privatization of life insurance is concerned. And when that man is holding more than 7,800 crore dollars as his balance sheet as a cash on hand and expresses his intention or a desire to visit India, certainly the entire paradigm shift is undergoing a change. If you really need my detailed views on this particular factor, I will request all of you to visit my YouTube channel, which I initiated hardly 45 days back, but have already received more than 1,300 subscribers and more than 11,000 views. I have many videos posted there, many in Marathi and few of them in English, which deals with this particular topic. And as I said, this would have an immediate positive impact as far as the general insurance as well as the life insurance of my country is concerned. And all of you would agree with me that in a post-COVID or even otherwise, insurance is one sector out of a financial services in our country which have a positive connotation and a huge investment as well as the employment opportunity. And if really these our general insurance companies as well, including LIC, gets listed on my equity stock market, there is a mention in budget February budget that government will come out with a LIC IPO under such circumstances. Although it may start with a small percentage, it would certainly have a very good fallout, a positive fallout, a positive landfall, to use a new terminology, as far as my insurance sector is concerned. But when I use this particular word, one has to undergo or one has to look at it very clearly. Because while giving an introductory note, Dr. Nita Deshpande said that some of the insurance advisors are also attending as far as this webinar is concerned, which is really international in nature. I do not know whether they will agree with me or not, but my observation as far as the insurance sector, especially life insurance sector, and that too in a post-COVID scenario is concerned, would be that henceforth my paradigm change would be there. It has already set in even before COVID, but it would get accentuated. Again, I'm not using the word aggravated. I'm using the word accentuated as far as life insurance terms for in a country is concerned. And it is certainly going to be implication post-COVID as far as the insurance sector in my country is concerned. I will deal with life insurance first, and then I will go to general insurance. My feeling or my reading of the insurance sector, although I'm coming from completely a capital market background or a pension fund background, but my observation, because I have to keep on observing insurance and gold, because they happened to be my competitors as far as attracting the funds were concerned. Till now, life insurance for a major reason was looked at a tax saving scheme or instrument as far as our country or a society is concerned at large. Point number one. Point number two, generally that being the insurance of life, my attitude towards looking at the LIC policies were more for a long term in nature. In a post-COVID scenario, and at that time, although in endowment policies, I was allowed to withdraw, say from after 5 years or a 10 years or a 15 years block, if I'm having a 20-year policy, very rarely the persons have withdrawn those funds. I personally feel, henceforth, as far as life insurance in our country is concerned, the policies having a duration of more than 10 years or 15 years would be very rarely sold. Point number one. Point number two, whenever you are having an option that at particular point of time, after having such and such types of a lock-in period, if a policy holder is entitled to withdraw some money, earlier the percentages of such withdrawals used to be very low. Now that would be a routine matter. Point number two. Point number three, instead of having a withdrawal at a particular point of time, say 3 years down the line, 6 years down the line, 9 years down the line, henceforth, people would say, 3 years henceforth, I will need the money per month, per quarter, per 6 months, just like in the nature of a Jivan Shanti policy. So there is every likelihood that henceforth, not only the policies issued by LIC, but even the life insurance policies issued by the private sector life insurance players would be more in the nature of a systemic withdrawal plan rather than a systemic investment plan. And this is not only a change as far as the modus operandi is concerned, but it would certainly have the implication as far as the investments are concerned. Why LIC, or why for that matter Warren Buffett became such an important investment player across the globe? It was basically because till now insurance was such a sector where people used to invest periodically and withdraw right at the term end of a period. Henceforth, just like the LIC made a success with Jivan Shanti a few years ago, I'm not an agent or a brand ambassador of LIC, but this particular implication would get accentuated henceforward, and that would be a major implication as far as my insurance sector is concerned. And probably sensing this, LIC is playing their cards chest close to his chest, and when it says that we will be investing only 30,000 crores, because they try to assess that henceforth when they were investing at a drop of a hat, whether there is a disinvestment, whether there is a distress call, or whether there was a real business investment opportunity, now they will have to keep some money as far as the systemic withdrawal plan is concerned. Under such circumstances, when LIC used to collect the money periodically and give you at a lump sum, and during this particular phase, they used to invest those funds very carefully and very fruitfully. Exactly a reverse scenario of a Reliance Industries kind of a scenario would happen over here. One will have to be a very careful player. There is every likelihood that such major institutional investors player, instead of coming directly to a secondary market, henceforth as another fallout would be, they would like to have some equity stake more as a promoter. It just, I'm giving an example. If a scenario, I'm not saying the insurance players have started investing in that venture. I'm not. I'm just unfolding a scenario. And that may be a probability or completely a wild thought. That may sound a wild thought today, but there is every likelihood that it may not be wide and wild tomorrow or thereafter. If something like, say, Reliance Jio, which is happening place now, where huge funds are coming into, and that is giving fillip to a Bharti Airtel and other things, probably these kinds of equity promoter stake would be a thing of the future as far as these major institutional players are concerned. It would have a major implication, especially when I'm stating my views on the forum and the dais of one management institute, probably for our finance management students, probably for our marketing management student, probably for our HR management student, our entire syllabuses and our skill sets have to undergo a change. Even otherwise, a new investment scenario or a financial sector scenario, because the funding patterns thereof are completely different, they would be henceforth the true things. As you are aware, government is already on the record saying that henceforth the e-learning would be a pattern. We were having only single channel as far as education was concerned. Now we are going to have the 4 channels. Number one. Number two, henceforth from standard 1 to standard 10, there will be some part of a compulsory e-learning process. For each subject, there will be the separate sessions. So just imagine 10 standards, 7 subjects, at least 14 different languages. So 10 into 7 into 14 sessions we are going to run every day, if not day, every week. So what sort of a course containment, course uploading, course servicing, course dispersal, e-learning techniques, software, hardware, and related network would be concerned. Under such circumstances, my entire funding pattern will have to change. Will it not have an implication on my industrial finance? Finance Minister has already announced in one of those 5 days that they would be coming out with a public sector policy. And they will be basically focusing on what are the core activities and what are the non-core activities. Under such circumstances, if anything gets termed as a non-core, Finance Minister is already on the record saying that if it happens to be a non-core sector, Under such circumstances, if any public sector enterprise is existing in that non-core sector, that would be withdrawn. And if it is termed as a core sector, then minimum one, maximum four public sector enterprises would be included or playing into that particular area. And other private sectors can join them. Then just imagine what sort of a course correction in the nature either of a withdrawal or in the nature of a merger and acquisitions we are looking into. This would certainly change completely the landscape as far as my financial sectors are concerned. And as I'm nearing end, because I'm having my watch ticking, and I'm coming from a field of a capital market, time needs to be a sense of contract. My last point, I will not take more than a minute of yours. Point number one, just see, per se, it may not be a financial sector, but in a post-COVID scenario, under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, the finance minister and the minister of state for finance on the last days have said that they are completely revamping the Essential Commodities Act. And 6 factors, they would be deregulating it completely. And under that circumstance, a farmer would be allowed to make use of an e-trading platform, and he will be allowed to trade or sell his agriculture produce to any place in the country, and no interstate barriers would be applicable to that. These circumstances would be altered only at exceptional national circumstance level. Otherwise, no state will have to play a role. Given a perishability thereof, and given the e-trading thereof, just imagine what kind of a scenario we are looking into as far as the logistic industry is concerned. We do not have any detailed curriculum or a course to train my people like that, because it is not only a desk job of a management, but it is certainly running on the job kind of a scenario. Just correlate this fact that if you have seen yesterday's and today's newspapers, they have already told that trucks carrying those particular loads are virtually running helter-skelter. Container Corporation of India is under stress to meet this particular demand, because people feel that instead of sending a mile of goods by way of a truck running for thousands of kilometers, why not to load all these 100 trucks on a particular railroad kind of a scenario, or make use of Ganga Jalways kind of a scenario which Nitin Gadkari ji has developed. Just imagine what sort of a loan portfolio I'm looking at, what sort of a short-term financing I'm looking at, what sort of a GST collection centers I'm looking at, what sort of a tax collection, a local as well as a national is concerned, we are looking at. So per se, logistic is not a financial sector. But if this is true for logistics, it is true for space research, it is true for defense, it is true for pharmaceutical, and it is true for herbal food processing product. Per se, it is a single statement that till now, in a food processing industry, fruits were plucked from the farms and taken to a food processing unit. Now, a food processing unit will be taken to a farmhouse. Just imagine what sort of a change paradigm shift as far as the financing is concerned we are looking at. We as a financial sector are used to look at organized sector kind of a financing. Henceforth, we will have to equally concentrate. I'm not saying disown organized sector, but probably equally we will have to look after as far as these unorganized sectors are concerned. And the teething problems which these small finance banks got by converting into a major bank, just have a look at a Bandhan Bank and compliance issues, what sort of a financial sector implications we are having into. So I may sound negative, but I am not. Neither my surname Tilak, nor my birth sign Gemini, nor my association with Indian capital market permit me to be pessimist. But certainly this is completely going to be a new shift, a huge opportunity, but for that, we will have to remain nimble. If you feel that what I have deliberated so far is up to the mark, I would request 2 things to you. Point number 1, it is not I'm marketing for my screen. Please don't take it that way. But you would appreciate this probably would happen to be just kind of introducing a syllabus to you on a first day of a session rather than going into the detail. Each and every topic can be deliberated. Certainly, I can go on talking for at least 24 hours on this, but that is not needed. But if I get the opportunity either by the same organizer or any of the institutes which find fit, it would be more than my pleasure and honor to either conduct such kind of a scenario globally or come to the Facebook pages for your own staff members and students. It would be more than my pleasure. Because let me tell you, it was not that Dr. Patil, when introduced me and said that I'm visiting so many institutes, probably she would have included the Vasantdada Patil Institute of Management Studies and Research as well in that. But jokes apart, you may visit my YouTube channel. More than 22 videos are available on that. Many of them are on economic issues, few are of them on my literary activities. I have written many books which are running into 15th and 5th edition thereof. My telephone number is 98-202-92376. It is easily available with today's organizers as well. And as I have retired now, my official email ID is no more operational. My personal email ID is chandrasekhar@gmail.com. Please feel free to contact me. And as I said earlier, please feel free to post your free and frank feedback as far as my session today is concerned. Now I say that the floor is open for question and answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your stimulating speech. So it's obvious that your talk seemed to provide much needed knowledge in the light of COVID-19. Shall we proceed with the question and answer session, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, sir. So, sir, there is a question from Dr. Kabli Subramanian. Kabli, sir, are you there?
Yeah.
Kabli, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning, one and all.
Yes.
It's indeed my pleasure to listen to Mr. Chandrasekhar Tilakji. Very interesting presentation, detailed discussion. So I have one quick question, or rather two.
Honor,
one
sir.
is how NRI, what are the implications of all these scenario for NRIs, non-resident Indians? And secondly, how non-resident Indians can support India post-COVID scenario? Thank you.
I was expecting this kind of a question, especially when in an introductory remark, it was told that more than 4 countries, representatives from more than 4 countries are attending this seminar. Sir, I'm really happy for this particular question. It would be my pleasure and honor to reply your question. As far as NRIs are concerned, certainly there are implications. Whatever the implications are there for Indian citizens, certainly they would be continuing with there. But now henceforth, they will have to deal with one more scenario. I comprehend and I'm afraid, I'm not saying it has happened already, but I'm afraid that the day is not far off that each and every country in which our NRIs are residing would put forth some sort of a regulation. I'm not using the word restriction as far as the transferring the funds from that country where they are staying to India is concerned. You might have seen it already happening with the travel agents. You might have seen it as far as the forex deals are concerned. There may be certain caps kind of a scenario. Barring that, the conversion rates would not be undergoing any particular change. But unless and until those restrictions, if they continue with the existing rules, then certainly the same set of problems or the opportunities which Indian citizens would be having would be available to the NRI. But that may get overshadowed because you would see that I do not recollect the exact name of the country, and that's why it will not be fair to say so. But one or the 2 countries have already paid in that the persons who are not of that particular citizen of that particular country, but over there they are staying, point number 1. First thing they have said that at least temporarily, there no new more citizenship would be granted to them, point number 1. Point number 2, their job visas would be under review. And if needed, just like a migrant labor within the country, they may be asked at least temporarily to go back. Point number 3, certain percentage of their income earned in that particular country will have to be deposited in certain government schemes over there. And then only they will be able to transfer the funds over here for any purpose, except certain subsistence allowance which they are allowed to send it to their family member. But if it is coming directly in the nature of an investment, certainly that would be a bit difficult, because now each and every country first would like to have their first investment inputs first, and then they will allow, barring point number 1. Point number 2, the other role which NRIs can play very substantially henceforth, or rather it was a need of the hour and now it is getting accentuated, because now more and more opportunities would realize, not only because certain projects may get shifted to India, but certain new skill sets altogether would be required in India. And if my NRI citizens of our country are already having that skill set, there is every likelihood that they can have the opportunity to rethink whether from that demand for a skill set, and given their origins in India, just like as Aldous Huxley said in Roots, whether it is rewarding win-win situation kind of a scenario to resettle them over here, point number one. Point number two, why China is always so confident to take on anybody, not only because their forex reserves are 1,000 times more than our country, not only the quantum, but the composition of the Chinese forex reserve matters the most, point number one. It is because it is consisting not only out of the FDIs or exports, but the non-resident Chinese which stay outside China, but the quantum and frequency of funds which they send to China every month is more than 13% of a forex reserve of China. Whereas the similar percentage of NRI remittances to our forex reserve is less than 4.75% compared to, as stated in our current economics in a survey presented to the country. So if we can start inputting this kind of a scenario, that would be the best role as far as the NRIs are concerned.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Dr. Ambadas Barve from Parbhani. Sir, are you there?
Yes, madam.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead with your question.
Sir, hello.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Sir,
Yes.
Nirbhay Bharat, you state the Nirbhay Bharat Yojana. How does you collect a lot of money, sir?
If I have understood your question correctly, you are saying that as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan is concerned,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Package of 20.63 lakh crores are concerned.
Yes.
Where
yes,
from
yes.
government is going to raise these funds? Is that your question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. It is a very obvious question. Certainly, according to me, the government has not come and told me that I'm not that close to the government that they would whisper. But as my experience of last 32, 33 years of policy analysis is concerned, I feel point number one, certainly government is not going to touch a forex reserve which we are having. Government is not going to devalue our rupees. But government is basically saying that as far as the channelizations are concerned, those would be basically more from a loan portfolio given by the banks, point number one. Point number two, I personally feel they might not have politically used this word disinvestment at this juncture, but slowly certain disinvestments would happen. GST collections would get routed through, and henceforth there may be some sort of a provident fund realignment as far as the investment scenarios are concerned. Point number one.
Yes, sir.
Point number two, on one hand, there will be a good concessions as far as the new projects are concerned, and there will be equally a faster recovery of the sectors which have not filtered into. So I'm looking at an opportunity or an emergence of more sort of a municipal bonds or a GSEC kind of a scenario. Point number three, henceforth there would be certain more additional cesses. Already we have started raising the prices of petrol and diesel. In one day, we have seen more than a 3 rupee rise as far as the petrol and diesel are concerned. Yesterday also almost 60 to 80 paisa has been raised, and it could be a common phenomena now. Point number four could be, it could be that henceforth government would be having some sort of a privatization. I'm not using the word privatization, but I'm using the word corporatization. And that's why I have particularly stated that this particular government is more prone to raise the resources from unconventional sources. I will give you certain examples. As I was running short of time, fitting all these points in 45 minutes was difficult for me. Already our country has started that you may not be aware, you may be aware, not may not be, you may be aware that as far as calendar year to a financial year, not calendar year, financial year 2017, 2018, 2019 are concerned, we have started saving our forex reserve not because import of oil and import of coal and import of gold is inelastic for me. But as far as import of oil is concerned, which constitutes more than 62% of my import bill, major oil producing countries, now we have a contract whereby we have said that I will not be paying you by way of a rupee or by way of a dollar, but it will be feature of the goods produced in my country. That would be one way of raising finance. We will be enhancing it further. And I'm foreseeing a major influx of FDIs once these particular partial lockdowns are over. And hence for the Provident Fund and other regulations, they would be relaxing a bit so that liquidity would set in. Certainly on one day, the 20.63 lakh crores would not be released by government. It's a total pack for next 1 year. Majority of the amounts have already been provided into the budget, but now they will be realigned under this scenario. Wherever government would be withholding the refunds and utilizing it more, and credit rates and interest rates would be undergoing certainly a downfall. This would be the way of raising the finance. Certainly, I can conduct a separate session on this if somebody provides me opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we go to the last question, I request the participants to please fill in the feedback form, which is already floated in the chat box, so that you will get your certificate. Moving on with the last question. Chandrasekhar Tilak sir, this is a question from one of your friends, Madhav Gopte, who says, GDP has declined up to zero, causing increase in NPA, mesmerizing farmers' position. Why can't any country get moratorium provision as we get for business?
Thank you very much, Dr. Madhav Gopte, sir. It was really nice to hear you after a long time. You introduced me to Sangli. I never forget that. Okay, if I have understood your question correctly, your point is that if my country's GDP growth rate, world growth rate is important, is getting reduced to zero, under such circumstances, just like when industry gets a moratorium, why not agriculture should get a moratorium? Is it your question? Okay, I will go ahead assuming this particular question. Number one, sir, for that industry, agriculture is never recognized in my country as an industry. So unless and until I recognize it as an industry and recognize that it is a potential of an income, no such moratorium would be granted. But instead of giving a moratorium, because while I am giving a moratorium, I need to have some figure at my thumbnail. But unfortunately, till this year, since 1947 or even before that, our agriculture income was never counted. Point number one. Point number two, instead of having a moratorium, the agriculture farmers were always given a loan waiver. What they have done, or they are rather trying to do, or they have announced that way, that would be the correct word to put it, that henceforth they are trying to ensure the easy distribution and confirmed and continued sale of their agriculture produce. And that particular system has already been in place. And probably that they might not have given a moratorium at this particular juncture or a loan waiver is basically because agriculture happens to be a subject matter of a concurrent list. So unless and until the states are on the board, they would not be able to do it. But states are not in this position because there were certain, even they are running short of funds. We are seeing what is Maharashtra government is reporting day in, day out. Fortunately, to great extent now, central government has released their GST refunds. Point number one. Point number two, they may not be at this juncture because even in a locking down period, we have a locked in or a lockdown period, we have already observed that the production is not a problem. And now we are having some sort of a distribution channel, whereas there are possibilities of NPAs as far as the sale of agriculture produce is concerned is getting reduced. Instead of routing it through the APMCs or the agriculture vendors, when the products have started reaching the consumers by way of a collective buying by way of the societies, the residential societies, not only the residents are getting a good quality product, just like Gokul or Chittare milk products we have observed, the same pattern henceforth would continue. Because if you recollect, all the societies have already said that whether there is a lockdown or unlockdown, we will go ahead with this scenario. So that particular fund flow is getting started. And probably this may have some impact as far as this particular monsoon is concerned. I foresee a possibility that when they announced that 2,000 each, the 3 instances in 1 year, that is 6,000 would be given to DBT. Already those DBT refunds have been made. Point number 1. Point number 2, these are now such type of announcement in one form or the other may get coincided once Kharif season starts this particular week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you.
now the time has come to lower the curtain. Hence, I request Dr.
Ma'am, 1 minute, one sentence just I would like to say. Before we go to a formal vote of thanks, on my behalf, I would like to thank all the participants who took their time out and really participated in this seminar across the country and even from 4 different countries altogether. And I'm really thankful to the organizers also for providing me this particular opportunity. And as Madam has mentioned, while filling your feedback forms, please feel free to give it. Certainly looking forward to have more such continuous interaction, not only through webinar, but even otherwise, and not only on this topic, but anything to do with economic, finance, investment, or political, sociological instances. Thank you very much. Madam, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Dr. Deshpande Madam to propose the vote of thanks.
Hello, participants from different states and different countries. Thank you very much for participating in this international webinar. I would like to express our profound gratitude to our beloved principal, Dr. R.A. Shinde sir, for his motivation to conduct such series of webinars henceforth. I would like to thank our Vice Principal, Dr. M.M. Ali sir, for his moral support and guidance. On behalf of my institute and entire organizing team of this event, I sincerely thank our distinguished speaker, Sri Chandrasekhar Tilak, for kindly accepting our request and gracing this session, and for giving excellent coverage to the given topic of webinar. He has covered many subjects, that foreign institutional investment in the stock markets. He has also thrown light on the mutual fund assessment, which have been changed. Direct taxes collection has gone down. He has given more stress on the Atmanirbhar Abhiyan, where the government is invested crores of rupees. He has also stressed that this investment from China by the Malaysia and Vietnam and other countries. So Atmanirbhar and what the logical implications of this COVID-19 on the Atmanirbhar LIC, as it is the biggest investor in the different businesses, how it can be impacted with this COVID-19. He also given stress on the that reducing, you can say, commission, or we can say brokerage of the financial advisors. Lesser amount will be collected from the investors, because investors are panic right now. The impact on food processing industries, paradigm shift in these industries. He also says that there are huge opportunities, but what is the need of an aware? That is, we must be update. What will be, as the Dr. Kabli from Muscat, he asked the question regarding the impact of NRI of this COVID-19. He has nicely answered. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Definitely, this session is really informative for all the participants. Thank you for your very interesting and thought-provoking lecture. We are all inspired by your great words. I thank my team members, Professor S.A. Sharik Maslak and Professor A. Atta sir, for their support in organizing this great event. I thank Dr. S.T. Bhosle sir and Dr. Satikar sir for their technical support, and all our staff members who have made this webinar a grand success. Last but not the least, I am thankful to all the enthusiastic participants for participating in this international webinar. We have been fortunate to have some of the participants from abroad. I would like to thank Dr. Kabli from Muscat, Dr. Professor Asim from Malaysia, Dr. Nitya and Dr. Girish Kumar from Oman. I am sure that the participants must have benefited by attending this international webinar. I once again thank everyone whose contribution has made this webinar a successful one. Dear participants, we have series of webinars and FDPs, which will be conducted online. I will intimate you through the Telegram group, so please don't leave the group. I hope all will support and participate for these webinars. Thank you very much. On 12th June, on coming 12th June, there is an international webinar again on few businesses, stories, and many lessons, which will be delivered by Dr. Kabali from Muscat at 11 a.m. So please register for that webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you. All the participants are requested to fill the feedback form. Then only your certificates will be generated, and the feedback form will be open only for half an hour. Thank you very much. So please leave the meeting. Thank you.